what's going on, everybody? This is John Jake Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the FCS Dynasty here on NCAA 06, and also featuring that next mod as well. We find ourselves in week number 5 as the action only gets more intense from here as we move through season number 5, as we got 8 games on tap here in this episode, including some multiple top 25 matchups, so you're not going to want to miss a single thing. Hope you guys are excited for it. If you are, make sure to go ahead, smack that like button for me, hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. And we're going to start with the game of the week, man. Georgia Southern going on the road to take on Nicholls State squad, who already has one top 25 win over the course of this season so far. They did lose to Akron, as well as had a little bit of a head scratcher of a loss, I think, so that's why they're outside the top 25. But Deuce Randolph's going to take the carry. It's going to run right through the heart of the Georgia Southern defense, and that's going to be a touchdown for Deuce Randolph. How about that to get the scoring going? Opening drive in the game, and Deuce Randolph able to find some space on the perimeter, and the Colonels taking a 7-0 lead here at home. They are looking really good in what is a very early game of the week here in the FCS Dynasty, but you cannot forget about Frederick McNair, though. Frederick McNair, he is certified him, going one-on-one in coverage, able to, make the play against that linebacker, which, listen, if you get a receiver against a linebacker, don't care if it's a tight end or if it is one of those, DBs, it's going to be a matchup every single time, because middle linebackers, that's not what they're meant to do. But Deuce Randolph apparently is meant to find his way into the end zone, though, because that's already his second touchdown of the game, and this one more impressive than the first one, able to break a tackle there and get away from the fellow custom Marquez Lewis. So Georgia Southern finds itself down 14-0, and they got a pretty big deficit that they are dealing with right now, and that deficit's going to get a little bit bigger as we see Georgia Southern, they fumble the football, and then Nicholls State able to pounce on it, get another score up on the board. This is a really surprising development. 27-0 is your score in the fourth quarter of action. Now, if you told me that this game was a blowout, I figured Georgia Southern won big. This is what we have experienced in the past, but Speedy Wood's going to get another touchdown on the board, and Nicholls State has a 34-point lead over defending national champions. Like, we can't gloss over that real quick. We got a 34-point lead over the national champions, and that score remains the same. Nicholls State here, game of the week, national television too. While we're at it, they beat the defending national champions 34-0. So congrats to Nicholls State. That's going to be a huge boost to their resume moving forward. And with that being said, Georgia Southern, they came in number 2 in the country. So it just goes to show we are going to have some major shakeups in the AP Top 25 poll when that does end up coming around. But for now, we will focus in on some other games that are happening around the FCS Dynasty. We do have South Carolina State. They come in ranked number 19 in the entire country. They're going to be taking on the Howard Bison. The Bison, one of those teams that have had decent teams in the past, but they really haven't made too terribly much noise. So we'll see if they can get back to that, or what's going to happen there. But either way, we're going to go ahead and get the second game of this episode, by the way, started, man. It's such an exciting episode, man. I'm really happy about this particular week's gameplay, so you're going to want to stick around for this entire thing as Howard puts the ball on the ground, and it's recovered by the Bison. So right off the rip, we got Carlson Saturday. He's got a chance to give his guys a lead, and how about this big time throw over the middle of the field, challenging the heart of the secondary of South Carolina State on the road. And it leads to a goal line situation inside the 10-yard line. Going to try throw again over the middle of the field, looking for one of his receivers, but that is going to be incomplete. I mean, he was like cheese on macaroni, man. He was not going anywhere. And now it's third and goal from the 8-yard line. They're going to try to set up a play action. Saturday does not have a lot of time, and Griffin's going to pick him off. And that will be a huge play for the Bulldogs, as they were looking at an early deficit. South Carolina State, sometimes they have those slow starts, those questionable starts, but Carlson Saturday gonna throw a big interception here in the red zone does get the tackle at the very least. So shout out to the custom quarterback for, making a tackle on the football. But South Carolina State, they're going to continue to show up here, though. As Howard, they will turn the ball over once again. This time it's their running back that sells on them a little bit. It is recovered by one of the hog mollies on the defensive line. But still, besides the fact that there's 2 turnovers in this game, we really haven't seen South Carolina State do anything. They still have not scored in this football game. I don't know how they managed to do that, with the second turnover being in Howard territory. They literally could not move the football after that. It's been a frustrating day for the Bulldogs offense. As now, 2nd and 7 coming up Saturday. It's going to face some incredible pressure. And this time, it will be intercepted. And they will not be denied. Not this time around, as we got a high stepper into the end zone. And that is a touchdown for the Bulldogs of South Carolina State. A 72-yard touchdown return. How about them apples? That's just that pressure up front. They have one of the better front sevens in the entire country. Reggie Bush leads that group. Yes, you heard that correctly. Not to be confused with the former running back from USC. And now we're looking at a lead for South Carolina State as Howard. They are going to try to return this football back again. But we got a recovery on the field. And Howard turns that football over a 3rd time. And in spite of the fact they literally have 5 times as many total yards as South Carolina State, they're looking at possibly having a 2-touchdown lead, and that is exactly what happens. South Carolina State, they're able to extend their lead, and it's 14-0, making it way too easy. And now it's the Bulldogs that are looking to add some huge momentum going into halftime, as we got a direct snap for Williams. Williams able to break through a couple of tackles. How about this? I did not realize we had some Ford presence here down in the South, because that running back, I'll tell you what, he's built Ford tough. Look at the guys he runs over. He runs over 2 separate defenders, makes the 3rd guy miss, and finds his way into the end zone after that. And the crazy part is, that's not even South Carolina State's final possession. They do get one more shot at putting some points on the board before we do end up going into the halftime locker room. This is, of course, after a Howard free and out, and already closing in on the red zone. Matter of fact, they do get into the red zone. 80% on the year. Very solid red zone football team. They usually come away with points. Hopefully this is not a jinx. Williams down the right hand side, stiff arming and fighting and clawing his way into the end zone. That's another touchdown for South Carolina State. Williams just having a career day here on the ground. Get away from my lemonade. That's 27-3. That will be your score. We'll cut into the 4th quarter as nothing really happens in the 3rd, but something that does happen is Williams finding the end zone. He has a career day. We got to talk about that real quick. He has an absolutely career day, puts a hat trick up on the scoreboard, and South Carolina State, they are going to also blow out Howard. They beat the Howard Bison 34-3. They do exactly what they are supposed to be doing. And South Carolina State, they are looking to get back to the FCS playoffs here in year number 5. So now we jump into yet another game of action. We are blessed with some really good games here today. We got another good one here between the Samford Bulldogs and the Tennessee State Tigers. Now, the Big Ten, it's a pretty competitive conference. There's no one, I would say, in the Big Ten conference, at least this new Big Ten, that you could look at and say, oh, you can get that in as a win. Like those kind of conferences. You really got to bring it every single week. And, going to be a very interesting matchup between these two teams. I'll tell you what, because we got a very good one on our hands. Tennessee State just ranked outside the top 30, and they are one of the lesser teams in the conference, to be honest, and showing that they can play with just about anybody as they start this game, throwing a deep ball, and Tennessee State's going to actually make the catch, throwing it over the outstretched arms of the custom corner, Jabari Thomas, who at this point is getting close to his senior year, man. He's played more college football than what he has left. We'll put it that way. But Dylan Thomas, he's having a good year from Tennessee State so far. Has not turned the football over, at least just yet. He's got 3 touchdowns for 0 interceptions. But that is going to be extended to a 4-0 touchdown interception ratio, as it is those Tennessee State Tigers that will pounce on the scoreboard first. They pull that 7-0 lead over the Samford Bulldogs. Like I said, man, we are going to be in for a good football game. I got a great feeling about it. As now, later on in the game, 3rd and 6, as Dylan Thomas looking to throw again towards the right-hand side. He's got a big catch down the field. Only the safety could stop him, and thankfully he does. But another big play downfield. How about this throw? Just getting it out there on a dime. And just Dylan Thomas, he's really feeling himself so far. 4 for 5, 120 yards and a touchdown. He's having himself a day thus far, as Thomas looks to throw again, but this time runs into pressure, and that is the sophomore custom, Hans Wofford, able to provide a whopper on that play. And it's now 3rd and 23. Dylan Thomas in an obvious passing situation. Throws downfield, though. It don't even matter. Dylan Thomas, he is out there. He woke up this morning when this video came out, and he literally chose violence. That is an incredible throw. Facing some pressure, too. Samford, they brought the blitz. We'll go check out that replay one last time. Well, I guess we will see it from the, the wide receiver corner perspective, but this is good coverage. That is fairly good coverage there on the outside. Just there's nothing you could do about a perfect throw, and Tennessee State looks like they are going to be finishing this drive off, and they get yet another touchdown up onto the scoreboard. So 14-0, that's going to be your score. How about this? Tennessee State Tigers coming to play. So later on in the game, still scoreless for the Samford Bulldogs, as we do end up seeing Ashton Hines end up getting hurt. So Hendrick Solo does come into the game. He does get a play action opportunity, and Hendrick Solo, he's a younger player. He is a true freshman. One of your guys' customs too, by the way. Love highlighting the customs that you submit in this series. You could really see the arm talent on this kid. He's got a good future here with the Samford Bulldogs. Someone that will be competing for that starting job once Ashton Hines does graduate. But in the meantime, he's making the most of his opportunity, as he's going to get a little help from special teams as well. Not only going to get one touchdown from the special teams in the 4th quarter, but I didn't realize that we were in a Drake song. You know why I didn't realize we were in a Drake song? Because we're going to go back to back with special teams touchdowns. That is going to be taken all the way back to the crib. And just in a blink of an eye, the Samford Bulldogs, they got the lead. We'll see if Hendrick Solo can finish this game off, trying to throw to the left-hand side, but throws a costly interception, and now it's a foot race down the sideline. No one can make the tackle, and that's just a freshman mistake there by Hendrick Solo, trying to dump it off into the flat, but the flat was covered. The flat was 100% covered. Nothing you can do about that. You just got to throw that pass away, and Hendrick Solo learned in time that, hey, throwing the ball away, not a terrible idea. He just wants to make a play. He does, which he does have the ability to do. Very good prospect coming out of high school. While his decision making, he's got to work on that decision making. He can make some plays. If you throw to his right, this is not an easy throw, and he throws it right on the money. Now Samford has a chance to win this game, at least get the field goal. They are well within field goal range. Getting it to their tailback, and their tailback is going to punch it in. Touchdown, Samford. And the Bulldogs get yet another one on the board. And this was a close game. This was a very competitive game. Tennessee State, they were nearly able to go ahead and pull off the upset, but Samford will survive thanks to that backup quarterback, Hendrick Solo. And because of that win too, Samford, they're going to be allowed to stay in that top 25. They were sitting, pretty close to leaving the top 25. They were ranked number 20 in the nation coming into this game. Although I'm always under the school of thought, if you go into somebody's home field and they're at least close to being ranked, they shouldn't be punished all that much. But the game had a different idea than what we got going on. See, Samford's number 22 in the country, so thanks to this win, they'll stay there or at least move up. But the last game that I wanted to jump into before we have a little bit of a studio update, we got the Northwestern State Devils. They go on the road to take on a emerging Prairie View A&M squad. Prairie View A&M, they have not made the FCS playoffs yet. They are ranked in the top 35 here in the early going of this season, but this Devils team is nothing to play around with. Matt Lewis, he's having a great year, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception so far this year, and they also got that running back in the backfield, Bo Arias, who's got that impact marker, letting him know that he is certifying him. I mean, I checked his x-ray the other day. Bo Arias, he's got that dog in him. Speaking of having that dog in him, Matt Lewis just throwing it on a dime, finding his receiver for a big first down. And that's just an in-breaking route. Find the soft spot in that zone. And now the Devils, as they went an entire quarter without scoring, they're trying not to make that 2 quarters down. Bo Arias gonna run through somebody like he's a dump truck, and he's gonna find his way into the end zone. Touchdown, Demons. And Bo Arias just on demon time, lowering the shoulder. That linebacker never had a chance. Later on in the game, though, still 10-0 as Matt Lewis throws over the middle. How about this throw by Matt Lewis? This is why this Devils team has taken a massive step forward. They are able to come out here. Matt Lewis, he's really improved as a quarterback, but, it's not all good and dandy. We'll see a sack there in the backfield. That will wrap up the third quarter of action. This does eventually turn into a field goal for Northwestern State, but Prairie View A&M, in spite of the offensive, or at least lack of fertility on the offensive end, they're staying in this game, and the running back, they're going to go a little bit creative here. They know their offense hasn't been going in the conventional sense, so they call a trick play, have the running back throw the football, and believe it or not, it actually works. It actually freaking works. Fools the entire Devils defense, and that's a touchdown for Prairie View A&M. They're right back into this game. They gotta prevent the Devils from scoring. If the Devils score again, this game is over. But Bo Arias, he's got some different ideas as he throws a rope to Eric Washington. But keep in mind, when you're watching this pass be made, this is a running back that made that throw. I didn't realize he, had a little bit of Julian element in him. Playing a little bit of high school football in college, because he looked very comfortable delivering that pass, and it does eventually lead to a Northwestern State touchdown, which does end up being converted. They do end up getting that 2-pointer, and it's a 21-7 lead. So down 2 possessions. Prairie View, unless there's a miracle, they're probably not going to win this football game, but that doesn't mean that they are going to just simply quit. This is a very prideful football team. They're trying to establish that culture that goes to consistent FCS playoff appearances. That's very important for them. But that being said, 13 seconds left, not a lot of time, and it's a very interesting decision that they are trying to pitch the football out, trying to run these speed options, and yet at the same time, it's kind of working. At the same time, it takes more time than I would say, to try to pass the football 15, 20 yards down the field, but they're still getting those same amount of yards on the ground, and it does lead to a red zone opportunity. The quarterback's going to run it one more time, get it out to the tailback on the perimeter, and dives into the end zone. That is a touchdown for Prairie View A&M. And how about this? Playing tough to the bitter end as the Panthers, they fight hard, but it's just not going to be enough. Northwestern State, simply too much. They do remain undefeated on the season, and that is going to wrap things up here. Northwestern State still undefeated, 4-0 on the year, as they are well on their way to going to their first FCS playoff appearance. They can keep this up, they will not only make it, but have a serious conversation about getting a first round bye when the playoff times happen. So even in the early going, we had a lot of games with some intrigue, but that also applies to some of the games in simulation. We had some competitive games and of course a couple blowouts that I want to bring to your attention. Starting with San Diego State, they hosted Northern Iowa, and while Northern Iowa gave it their all, they just did not have enough as the Aztecs win that game 28-23 to be undefeated. As for the Akron Zips, they continue their strong start to the season as they are now 4-0, beating Southern Illinois 41-13 as the Salukis still search for their first win of the season. Central Michigan, meanwhile, getting to 500 once again as they beat Indiana State in conference play 38-7 as the Sycamores are also searching for their first win of the year. But a game that was extremely exciting at that 1 o'clock slate was Chattanooga taking on Temple, and this was a game that actually did end up going to overtime, but Chattanooga was able to prevail 49-42. It was an epic shootout. And now we'll go back onto the field for more action here in the FCS Dynasty. But now we go ahead and jump into the evening action as we got another team that for some reason is, undefeated. They're 3-0, but have not yet cracked the top 25. We'll see if this is the magic moment for this program as Tennessee Tech, they come in 3-0 here on the season, but they're ranked in the top 30. They will have a pretty interesting challenge, though, in Eastern Kentucky, who, Eastern Kentucky is not what we think they are. They have been off to a little bit of a slow start here to begin this season, but still ranked in the top 25 and still a pretty difficult opponent to go up ahead and play against, especially doing so on the road as well, as that Lumber is brought down. How about this hit, man? That is a big old hit there. We're glad that he is okay, though, as Tennessee Tech, they will be forced to punt this football away. We do have a fair catch, but it's muffed, and Tennessee Tech recovers it. They go and get themselves a field goal off of that, and that's how you got to start when you're a team that is on the road. You're considered an underdog anyways. That's exactly how you got to play. And listen, Tennessee Tech, they came out with some fire and some determination to start this game because big touchdown there. Once again, for Tennessee Tech, they do get themselves to 10-0. That's your score. Yes, 10-0. And the Tennessee Tech Golden Eagles, they got themselves the lead to work with. So now we'll see if Cameron Coates and this running back, Louis Rose, he was a Heisman finalist coming into this season. Hasn't really lived up to those expectations yet, but that is a really good run up the middle of the field. Nobody there. Very fortunate that he was caught from behind somehow, but they will go back to Louis Rose as he fights his way into the end zone, and that is going to be a touchdown for the Colonels of Eastern Kentucky. We have seen another Colonel team win earlier in this episode. Will the Colonels go 2-0 in this episode? And I don't know how that's not a touchdown. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Not sure how that's not a touchdown. It seemed like he broke the plane, but they are going to mark him down at just about that 1 yard line. And Eastern Kentucky is still really good in the red zone when they make said red zone opportunities happen. Coates going to hand it off to Louis Rose. Everyone in the stadium knows it, and yet there's no way to stop him, though. Second rushing touchdown of the game for Louis Rose, as Eastern Kentucky, they're going to take their first lead of the ball game. And now we jump into the fourth quarter of action. It's still a close one. Could go either way. Rose, he's just going to go dumb here. He's going to do a little bit of EA sidestep cheese and then run forward after the fact, after everyone clears away. Now we're talking about a running back that has over 100 yards rushing, and he's certainly getting hot. Do they go back to him again because he's feeling himself? Rose running up the middle. He's going to fight and claw and get those wheels turning until he finishes into the end zone. That's another touchdown for the Eastern Kentucky Colonels and make that a huge touchdown run. One that Eastern Kentucky definitely needed. And it really puts Tennessee Tech on their back foot. Home crowd starting to get back into this game. That's almost a safety, but then something even worse happens. It was fumbled. Daryl Alexander, he's going to fall onto the football. And now Eastern Kentucky could put even more points onto the football field. They're going to be up by the 2 yard line. They're going to be at the 2 yard line to start this drive with one of the best running backs in the entire country. This is not a proposition that you want. So Tennessee Tech, they put 8 to 9 guys in the box, and it's still not going to be enough. It's still literally not enough. And Eastern Kentucky, they put another one up on the scoreboard. Another touchdown for Louis Rose. He's been absolutely electric, man. Just an absolutely electric football game that we got going on. And Eastern Kentucky, listen, it was a little bit of a questionable start. It was not an easy start for Colonels, but they proved that they are a top 25 team. And this is also a team that made a pretty deep run, if I'm not mistaken. Made it all the way to the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs. This is a good football program, one of the better FCS football programs, at least here in this Dynasty universe. I do want to point that out, right? Tennessee Tech, though, nothing to be ashamed about. They played with them for almost the entire game, kept it close to that fourth quarter. So now we check in on another top 25 team that is off to a little bit of a slower start as well. Eastern Kentucky, similar situation that the Southeast Missouri State team is in, and not able to capitalize on early season momentum, at least not yet anyways. But they do go up against Western Kentucky, and Western Kentucky, they're not playing around. Western Kentucky always off to a good start, but Western Kentucky, here's the thing with them. Western Kentucky seems like they're always one of those teams that seem to do pretty well in simulation, but when we get them in gameplay, whether it's for a regionally televised or a nationally televised game, just the Hilltoppers, they I don't know if the Monstars take away their talent. I don't know what's going on, but they're a completely different football team, and I mean that in the worst way possible. We'll see if they can reverse that trend as Southeast Missouri State's trying to get their first touchdown of the game in the red zone. Travis Johnson, though, he's going to face some pressure. He's actually going to be brought down into the backfield. There was a lot of time for Travis Johnson to throw that football, but nowhere for him to go with it. However, they do bounce back later on in the drive as the Redhawks of Southeast Missouri State find their way into the end zone, and that is a touchdown for the custom fullback, Joshua Taylor, who's able to take care of things and extend the lead for Southeast Missouri State. Later on in the game, though, their punter is actually going to punt the football over to Southeast Missouri State, and a little bit of love happening for the special teams unit as the Redhawks do make things happen here. A 58-yard touchdown return, 17-0 will be your score. And this is exactly what I was talking about. Western Kentucky just having a hard time keeping up with this top 25 Southeast Missouri State squad. Although, to be fair, at least on paper, they do have one of the best offenses in the entire country, or at least one of the best, I should say, defenses in the entire country. And that's why you haven't really seen any highlights of Western Kentucky's offense, because literally they haven't really done much of anything besides hit that occasional field goal, right? But when this offense wakes up to, and the defense is playing the way that it is, this is one of the best teams in the entire country. Travis Johnson, he's really having himself a much better day this time around than what we've seen in simulations, as well as that gameplay that we saw earlier this season against Montana. And the Redhawks are going to punch their way into the end zone yet again, and it is a touchdown for the Redhawks of Southeast Missouri State as we get into this fourth quarter of action. Hilltoppers down by 21. This is not where Western Kentucky wants to be. They want to run that football. They really want to grind you down. They really, they're like a poor man's Georgia Southern, North Dakota State, that type of team, except they go with a more traditional running game, but that's really not working right now. Another touchdown given up for the Hilltoppers, and yeah, it's just that kind of game for the Southeast Missouri State Redhawks. 31-3 ends up being your score after this touchdown, and the Redhawks, they get yet another touchdown. Well, they win the game. They do end up winning the game. They hang on to win. Nobody should be surprised by that by any means of the imagination, as they get back to 500. They're one of two teams in the top 25 that actually came in under 500. And ironically, I think Eastern Kentucky actually was one of them. Southeast Missouri State, they do right the ship, though, and take care of business in conference play, by the way, and taking down the Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky. But now we jump into a big program moment here for Florida A&M here as they, get to be on regional television. We don't get to see Florida A&M all that much, to the chagrin of, some of the custom channel members that we have here supporting the channel in a more personal way, which, by the way, if that's something that you want to get down with, have more direct say of, what games are shown here in the FCS Dynasty, highly recommend checking that out. It doesn't cost very much, and, everything is to support the channel, but big moment here for Florida A&M. They've been building their program up the past couple of seasons since Justin Krevital came onto this campus as a head coach, and maybe we're going to start seeing those results bloom a little bit as Quay Davis, that is the senior, he's going to run his way into the end zone in an early lead here against James Madison. We'll see if the Rattlers can keep it up for a full 4 quarters, because we have seen Florida A&M take an early lead against top 25 teams, but have been able to hold on and would still turn into blowouts after the fact. We'll see if that's also a case here as Mike Crum, the Crum bucket, he's gonna get a huge reception there, as helping out Stephen Terry, who surprised he doesn't have an impact star. We were just talking about a couple of weeks ago. This is a guy that could be a Heisman finalist, but has paid off ever since he was on that Sports Illustrated cover. Don't know if that's one of those Sports Illustrated, those cover curses. We have seen that with Madden, or at least with the Madden games from the Xbox 360, maybe that Xbox One, PS4 generation 2, but Stephen Terry's moving his troops down the field, gonna throw the football down to Brad Ondrauzi. Brad Ondrauzi is gonna get his guys into the red zone, and it's 1st and goal from the 7-yard line. Terry only has 1 interception on the year, still has 11 touchdown passes. We'll see if he can make it touchdown pass number 12 as Terry throws towards the end zone. He's going to be picked off. He's picked off. And now it's a foot race down the sideline. And he is going to be gone like a girl in a country song. Touchdown, Rattlers. Florida A&M coming out to play today. They're going to take a 17-0 lead. And this is just an incredible read on the football, realizing that they're going to go to that flat. That's a scouting report turnover there. You love to see it. And Florida A&M, they are playing extremely well in this game, and they're going to continue that. Kevin Wilson getting comfortable in the pocket. He's the quarterback for the Florida A&M Rattlers, able to pick apart this defense a little bit. And, it's easy to do that when you have time at the line of scrimmage, when you're able to, be given that time by your offensive line to, make those reads that need to be made. You're able to do things like that. Lead another touchdown drive. Really a team effort here for Florida A&M, as we've now seen an offensive touchdown, a defensive touchdown, and now we've seen a special teams touchdown as well. So we already got the trifecta, all 3 phases of the game being included. But also James Madison, they just can't get out of their own way right now. Culverson, he will get his first interception of the season, and as well as Florida A&M has been playing well, all the credit in the world going to the Florida A&M Rattlers right now. Granted, there's still a half of football left to be played. James Madison's playing terrible right now. I mean, Stephen Terry has already thrown more interceptions today than he's had in the entire season. So now we'll see if he can rally back from 24 down. Not an easy proposition as he throws to the right-hand side, but Mike Crum is going to also put this football on the ground, and now it's a foot race. Kyle Lockhart, he's the last line of defense. He does make that tackle, but Stephen Terry, he does go down with an injury, so that could open things up for a custom player at quarterback, Hans Heinlein, to come in and maybe lead the comeback of the century. We have seen, certain quarterback changes have impact on players' seasons, and, in a positive way as well. We'll see if this young quarterback, Hans Heinlein, can make the most of his chance. He's going to start with good field position, but unfortunately it only leads to a field goal. Later on in the game, though, still down by 27. I thought Heinz got that pass off. I figured they would call that an incompletion, but they actually don't. They call this a fumble. Might have been a little bit more questionable of a call, but either way, Florida A&M will take over at the 26-yard line as we get a fumble in return, and that will be recovered by James Madison. So, again, I don't want to dispute whether that was actually a fumble or not on James Madison's previous offensive drive, but maybe that was a case of ball don't lie. We'll see if this could lead to a comeback of the centuries. Heisman throws to the left-hand side. He's going to throw one up into the air. He's got a receiver. It's going to be caught by Brad Andrauzi. Huge first down as Heinz Heinlein making his collegiate debut. Interesting time for him to make his collegiate debut right now. He's over 100 yards in this quarter alone. But can he finish drives? So James Madison, they have really struggled to do that all day long. First and goal from the 9-yard line. It's a play action. Heinlein does not have any time, though, to get rid of that football as Culberson, who, by the way, just had his first interception of his career. He's also going to get a sack in this game. So a huge performance for Tony Culberson as that brings James Madison back to the 15-yard line. And they'll try again with the play action. Heinlein trying to throw over in the middle of the field. He finds a receiver. It does end up being caught, and that's a touchdown for the Dukes. Could be a case where, and it really was this particular case, too little too late. Florida A&M, they score a big-time win. You want to talk about setting yourself up for success? You know, got to get those conference wins. Get yourself to a conference championship game. Because I'm not sure if they're going to get from that 55 national ranking into the top 25 unless they just happen to run the table for the rest of the year, which could always happen. But great win for Florida A&M. Just incredible. He's loving it, and it's going to be a huge boost for recruiting. But for the final game of this episode, we will have Eastern Illinois going on the road. Yet another Big Ten matchup that we got going on. Could be a little bit of an overrated team in Eastern Illinois. They will be taking on Murray State, who has yet to make it to the FCS playoffs in this series. We'll see if they can turn their fortunes around here in year number 5, because, you know, they do have a pretty decent football team. They actually do have a pretty solid football team. We just haven't seen that really like put it all together on the field yet. We'll see if that happens here as Lobdell. He's going to think about throwing a lob, but doesn't even have the time of day to do that as Sam Harrell. He is going to get things going here. First play of the game ends up being a sack. It ends up being a sack, and the Murray State Racers, that's a good start. That's how you want to start this game. Make sure that Lobdell does not have the time to get it out to his receivers. He's got a pretty good 1-2 receiver combo. Phoenix Firebird, and more notably also having Ralph Rags, the rags to riches. You know, so if this passing game can get going, and, you know, also Lobdell could have definitely thrown that football to Phoenix Firebird, but that's besides the point. You know, it could be a long day for Murray State. That being said, though, Lobdell is going to drop back the pass, trying to throw over the right-hand side, but it's going to be intercepted. It's your custom Sam Randolph, who gets his first interception of the season, and that's a big play. That's a big play that you can make on the football, getting it off of the deflection, and just looking at the replay, really not sure where they're trying to go with that football. I'm going to keep it honest with you guys. And now, Murray State, they got this early lead. They can extend it even further. 3-0 be your score here in the second quarter as they go trying to pitch the football. Sorry for the long break and, you know, and talking, but I'm not sure what happened. I don't know what we were doing here. I don't know what we were trying to accomplish, but I'm sure that's what Murray State was thinking as well as they turn the football over. Was a promising drive, but they don't get anything. Eastern Illinois does not get anything going on their drive as well, but Bobby McNeil, you know, besides that fumble, he's going to make some good decisions here. Throws a nice ball out there, gets his team across midfield, and now they set up the play action. McNeil throwing to the left-hand side, finds the receiver. He's loose in the secondary, and he finds his way into the end zone. Touchdown, Murray State. And Murray State races on to that 10-0 lead, giving that time to Bobby McNeil. And Bobby McNeil, he is not playing around and playing any single game right now, as he's having a great performance so far. 224 yards, a touchdown to go with it. He's having himself a ball game. That ball game will continue. He's got his second touchdown pass of the game. This time, mossing somebody in the process too. Just using his big body and taking advantage of the smaller defender. Just using those basketball terminologies right there, as, you know, Russell Matthews wasn't a good spot, you know, to, you know, get that ball removed, but, he's just not big enough. Gotta get into that weight room just a little bit more. And Russell Matthews, capable player. We'll see if he can turn some things around here, as I believe he's going into his senior year as well. He doesn't have much more eligibility left. Really getting to that point in the series where we're starting to really start to see your custom guys. Those first custom guys, the guys that were made back in year number 1 as well as year number 2. We're really starting to see those guys starting to leave the FCS series. It's a little bit sad to see because, some of them, they were OGs on this series, right? So it's a really interesting thing, to talk about. But speaking of customs, Ralph Rags, that's who I was talking about earlier. At the beginning of this game, the Rags to Riches story, and Ralph Rags get himself yet another touchdown. Just hopping his way into the end zone too, but that will not be enough to get back into this game, as the Murray State Racers, they're going to be able to pull the upset off. They win this game at home, and Eastern Illinois, they were exposed a little bit here tonight. This is kind of what we expected. Eastern Illinois, they had a tough year last year. We'll see if they can, they took that L, but we'll see if they can bounce back, though, as Murray State gets to 3-1. Maybe an indicator to watch out for the Racers throughout this season. But before we go and check out some of the stuff in the newest Sports Illustrated magazine, let's check out some of the ninth scores that we didn't get a chance to see in person. Sacramento State, of course, played host to the Washington Huskies, a Pac-12 squad, but Sacramento State was able to pull it out, winning 35-24. As for Eastern Washington, they were not as fortunate, though, as they take their first loss of the season. They lose to the Buffalo Bulls 23-22 on regional television. Also losing their very first game of the season is the Skyhawks of Tennessee Martin. They take a shocking upset as well, as the Jacksonville State Gamecocks win 30-14 at home. Sam Houston State, however, was able to avoid that upset as they take care of business in conference play against Furman, the Paladins falling once again 48-24. That being said, we go to another conference game, this time in the MAC Conference, and Kent State loses their first game of the season. They lose to the Ohio Bobcats 17-14, and Ohio, they're still undefeated. North Dakota State has not played in very many games, but definitely raising some questions. On the offensive side of football, they do beat Norfolk State, but that final score was close, 21-14. Weber State, however, still manages to be undefeated on the season, as the Wildcats of Weber State win 27-14 against the Minutemen of UMass. So in this week alone, we ended up seeing the number 1 team in college football lose, which is why you see them on the cover, because they did lose to Delaware State, and the number 2 team lost in gameplay. They lost to Nicholls State, so there should be a major shakeup here in terms of the top 25 polls, and I think we're going to go ahead and see who's going to be that new number 1 team in the nation, and they're going to give it to North Dakota State. They had that 7-point win over Norfolk State, although I personally don't think they're the best team in the country. I really think this Catamounts team can play 2-0 as well. They move up 2 spots, even though they were on bye. Other teams that do get a chance to benefit as a result of the chaos that happened was Sam Houston State. They move up 3 spots after a 24-point win over Furman. San Diego State, they move up 3 spots after a close win for First North Iowa. Akron is in the top 5 as well. Sacramento State, though, they move up 4 spots. Big win against the Washington Huskies. That's a Pac-12 opponent, so that's a big-time win for that Hornets program. As for the rest of the top 10, we got Chattanooga at 7 after beating Temple. Northwestern State after beating Prairie View A&M. That could be a sleeper team in the Big 12. Georgia Southern is still in the top 10, but they're down to number 9 after taking their arguably worst loss in this dynasty. We're not used to this. And then New Hampshire is at number 10 as well after their 3-point loss to Delaware State. Now, as for the rest of the top 25, we got Arkansas Pine Bluff at number 11. Huge win versus Northern Colorado. Portland State was on bye, but they still move up 3 spots too. Southern moves up 3 spots as well, as does Texas Southern. Meanwhile, James Madison falls 10 spots because they did lose by 23 points to Florida A&M, creating some more chaos in the polls. Eastern Kentucky, however, does stay in the top 25. They move up a couple of spots thanks to their big win over Tennessee Tech. And as for what else we got going on, South Carolina State moves up 2 spots. They have a 31-point win over Howard. Tennessee Martin still in the top 25, but suffering their first loss of the year and getting punished for it. Rounding out this group, we got Northern Arizona at 19. Samford at number 20 after a 7-point win over the Tennessee Tigers. Eastern Illinois still in the top 25 as well. They could be overrated, but that is remains to be seen. And we got some newcomers. Nicholls State gets back into the top 25. They were briefly in a couple of weeks ago before they lost to Akron. Weber State is up 2 spots as well. And then rounding out the group, we got Southeast Missouri State and the Ohio Bobcats, who do get into the top 25 poll. As for some other teams to watch out for in the AP top 25, we got Eastern Washington, who was one of 2 teams that ultimately dropped out, but they're still receiving votes. Murray State starting to get some top 25 consideration now thanks to their win versus Eastern Illinois. And rounding out the group is Tennessee Tech, Montana State, and the Alabama State Hornets. As for what kind of impact this will have on the Heisman Trophy race, what we got going on is that Stephen Robinson retakes his #1 spot as of right now. He's having a great year with 22 total touchdowns, 5 of which came against the Thunderbirds of Southern Utah. Meanwhile, the only person stabilizing the Heisman watch as of right now is Eric Washington. He's a junior from Northwestern State. Pretty good game, 4 catches, 86 yards. Has 6 total touchdowns on the year. He's having a good campaign for the Demons. And then rounding out the group, we got a few newcomers in here. We got Darren Walls, the senior from Temple, who has 13 total touchdowns on the year already. Also on that New Mexico State squad is Brent Cunningham. He has 7 receiving touchdowns too, but don't really see his stats for that Southern Utah game. And then we have a defensive player for the Cardiac Cats. It's senior linebacker Andre Murphy. The senior has 22 tackles, 8 TFLs, 6 sacks, multiple interceptions, and he has a defensive touchdown to his name. We'll have to keep an eye out for him if he can remain in the hunt in the Heisman watch. So that will wrap things up here in week number 5. And guys, I will tell you what, this game was absolutely insane. It was incredible what we witnessed on that football field, and hope you guys enjoyed this episode, man. This episode of the FCS Dynasty here on NCAA 2006. And if you really enjoyed the content, by the way, it would really help me out in that YouTube algorithm if you smash that like button for me, which I'm sure you enjoyed the video because you made it all the way to the end. In addition, if you're brand new to the channel as well, I would really appreciate it too. If you smack that subscribe button for me, I would truly appreciate that, as we're trying to grow this community here on the YouTube platform. But with all that being said, next episode we will have week number 6 of the FCS Dynasty. Things are continuing to heat up. It's been fun so far this year. I hope you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.